Good morning, everyone. My name is Suparna Sinha. I'm an instructional designer at the University Online Education Services at Rutgers University. On behalf of the 2025 Rutgers University Online Learning Conference, I'd like to welcome Lisa Kindred and her colleagues Tammy Barker and Christina Clark from Indiana Tech. We are pleased to have them share their thoughts on harnessing generative AI and seeing how it enhances feedback and guiding student use. During the session, we're going to be using the live chat session, and you can pose questions, and the presenters will answer them as they'll go by as the time permits. So, Lisa, over to you.
Actually, I'm going to start.
Okay, sorry, Tammy.
No problem. So first, we want to tell you a little about our university. We have about 1,400 traditional day students, about 2,700 online undergrad students, and about 1,100 online graduate students. Most of our online classes are taught in 6 weeks, so they are at an accelerated pace. Students tend to take one at a time, so that way they can really focus on that course and not have to spread it out to multiple courses. When classes are really hard or long or have a lot that we need to get into it, we may spread it out to 12 weeks, which means students might take 2 classes. Traditionally and historically, we've taught to an adult learner, so most of our students are full-time, have full-time jobs, they have families, and then they're going to school as well. But we're starting to see some transition here and some younger students coming online too, which is exciting, but it is adding some new challenges to have this mix of students. We are truly a remote team. Chris and Lisa are both in Indiana, but not adjacent to each other. They're kind of east-west, and I'm in Florida. So we collaborate all the time. It's very good to work in this kind of environment because we're a lot like our students, where our students are completely online, so are we. So we know the challenges that there are to be online, but we also know how rewarding it can be when things work well. So our session objectives are to describe foundational concepts of AI and identify its application in education. So I'm going to start us off on that. Then we'll apply AI tools to teaching practices to enhance feedback, quality, efficiency, and academic integrity. And then we'll finish up with looking at how AI can evaluate strategies for guiding students on ethical AI use and create guidelines emphasizing originality, citation, and academic integrity. So I'm going to take us through a little look at AI because I think a lot of us really feel like AI just happened overnight. Like all of a sudden AI is all around us, but it's really been coming for a while. And I think we also tend to think of AI as the new LLMs that we've been using for about the last year, that we got excited when ChatGPT came along, but we should see like, how did we get here? So I thought it'd be fun to kind of think that we've all grown up a little bit with AI, whether it was in cartoons, which this goes back to 1962, or maybe in Star Wars, maybe Kit talking when we watch Knight Rider, of course, Data, who looks very human-like, and then things that are a little bit more recent. So I thought it was really good for us to kind of think about how we viewed AI as people and growing up, and we really did look at the characters and have feelings about the characters, and we thought they all had personalities. So I think we've been growing up with the idea of learning that this was coming, but now we're surprised, right? Like we kind of knew it was happening all along. So let's go back to the 1950s when Alan Turing came up with the Turing test to say, we're going to get to this point where we have to decide, is it a robot or is it a person? And then in 1956, during a Dartmouth conference, the term artificial intelligence came about. So this is 1950, such a long time ago that this all began. A few pit stops along the way I thought we could highlight is in the 60s and 70s, AI development was for symbolic reasoning, problem solving, and early chatbots started. And I'm really just amazed that chatbots back in the 60s and 70s. Then the 80s and 90s, when maybe we didn't hear about it so much, but a lot of work was being done on machine learning and neural networks, which became foundational. Then in the 2000s, 2010, excuse me, deep learning, big data, speech recognition, image processing, and NLP, which is natural language processing, came about. So we had all of these steps along the way. So I want to kind of show you how that breaks down. So I think like it's very interesting to look at the timeline and to how these are subsetted inside of each other. So artificial intelligence is this big set that talks about the fields of computer science that's focused on creating systems to perform tasks usually required by human intelligence. So I know we worry about being replaced by humans, but it's supposed to take care of some of the things maybe we don't want to do. And then as a subset of that, we have machine learning. So this is where algorithms are there. It starts using predictions from data. Then deep learning is a subset of that uses neural networks to learn from complex data. So each one's getting more specific in what it's doing. And then finally, we get to generative AI, which is what we're all getting used to now. So this is our subset of deep learning, and it creates new content. And I feel like it's changing all the time. So at first we started with text, but then there's images and code. So really to give you a bigger picture, here's a lot of the things we're seeing now. So articles and blogs, stories and poems, emails. I love letters of recommendation. It's so helpful. I also love project proposals because it might throw something in there that I'm like, oh, I didn't think to add that step. We're now seeing things too like podcasts, and it can create voice. So there's so many great ways that LLMs have come about and helped us. Now, when you look at the things like neural networking and machine learning and you think, oh my goodness, I don't know all of those things, there's good news. You don't need to understand how electricity works to turn on a light. You don't also need to understand all the complexities of AI to be able to use it. So before we talk about the many ways we can use AI, we're going to talk about why we use it. And we wanted to include this graph from Statista that was just published in the last few months that talks about employers' demand. So this shows that about 2/3 of people are looking for employees to have some kind of AI skills in the workplace. So when they did this particular survey, you can see the US came at 65% of those surveyed said that they wanted employees to have AI skills. That goes right in with the 31 country average. And this is going to continue to grow. So we definitely want to keep that in mind as educators, that we're preparing our students for the real world. So we would like you to answer in the chat, why do you use AI? Right, save time, right? Definitely. Yeah, right. Brainstorming ideas. I obviously made this picture with Copilot, and the more I look at it, the more I'm fascinated by all the little like wrong things I see in it. Somebody's on backwards. People are missing parts of arms. Somebody's missing a face. So we still see things. Definitely, there's bias because everybody is in really good shape in this picture. Like I definitely noticed that. I was like, look how beautiful everyone is. So a lot of people say the same thing, right? So rubrics, saving time, filling gaps, evaluate writing, right? Get an answer. Awesome. So I have another question for you, which is, oops, let me see if it'll come in. Why do you think students use it? And again, answer in the chat. So I like us to think about what do we do, but then how do students do it? And are we really different? And as you're filling in why students use it, I'm going to stop sharing so Lisa can come in. And Christine, I saw you just said you would love to know some AI options. I am sure those are coming with you at Lisa and Christina. They have that for you for sure.
All right. So yeah, it's clear that AI has and will continue to change the way in which we work, how we work. It's forcing us to rethink a lot of things. And as we were just seeing in the chat here, there are a lot of us using AI for many different reasons. For me, I like it to help with grading, right? I like to have it save some time for me and whatnot. But I'd also like for you all to share with us how you're using AI specifically for grading. So please don't hesitate to engage in the chat. And also, what are the benefits, right? So we saw like benefits of getting a quick answer or saving some time. But how do you think AI can help us with grading? What are some of the benefits? And we'll talk about some of the concerns in a little bit. But for right now, what are some of the positive aspects of it? So I was giving it some thought and thinking through it, and like you all said, it's efficient. It saves time. It can quickly analyze a large volume of assignments, which significantly reduces assignment turnaround times. And we know that the sooner we return feedback to students, the sooner they're able to correct misunderstandings. And also, if we're reducing the time we're spending on grading, that's going to allow us additional time to engage more deeply with students. So we're shifting our time from hours and hours of grading to maybe providing a richer educational experience for students. And in terms of consistency, AI can apply the same grading criteria uniformly to help reduce some of the bias that might creep in with our grading. So it can improve fairness with our grading. It can identify patterns. It can analyze trends in student performance, can help us identify common areas where students are struggling so we can adjust our teaching methods accordingly. And it can suggest additional learning resources for students based on the errors that it was seeing in student assignments. So, for example, it can suggest different readings or websites the students can go to help them to better understand a topic in the course. So giving that really targeted support for students. And for me, I like that it can enhance the feedback that I provide to students by providing a lot more detail, a lot more thoughtfulness in the feedback. It can be programmed, which is another thing that's helpful for me, be programmed to sound less harsh, more empathetic, more supportive. So you can have it include motivational elements in the feedback to boost the students' morale. So using phrases like, "You're making great progress," or "keep exploring this topic, you're almost there," that can really make a huge difference in how feedback is received. And instead of generic comments like "good job," and we see that, the three of us see that a lot when we jump into courses in our assistant dean role and we're looking at what faculty are doing in their courses, we see a lot of generic comments. So AI can provide feedback that is specific to each student's work and highly detailed. So I wanted to include this look right here because there is such a mix of AI models and platforms and tools that are available today, and it just keeps growing larger, right? So this is obviously just a sampling. And what you can find is that each AI tool is designed for a specific application. So we have AI writing tools like Jasper that was originally designed for like marketers and content creators, but others are finding different ways of using it. We have AI image generators like DALL-E, AI models that are specific for education. Like we're super excited about Conmigo, Socratic's another one. There are platforms for data analysis. I'm sure maybe you're using meeting assistants to take notes during meetings, project management, the list goes on and on. And of all of these AI capabilities that have received media coverage over the past few years, and Tammy said this, the AI chatbot like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini, that's received the most attention. So just being aware that there are other platforms out there. And also, I don't know if you're like me, but it's difficult to stay on top of all these advances. So I find it very helpful to share information with colleagues. I subscribe to some AI blogs, OpenAI, DeepMind, Google, they all have AI blogs. There are AI newsletters, podcasts. YouTube has been especially helpful for me. And even following AI experts on the socials is also a way to keep on top of the releases and what's going on, right? So using AI for grading. What are some best practices? I was trying to get my thoughts together on this and what I find to be very, very helpful. Mainly, I use Microsoft Copilot, and that's because our university has a subscription that ensures our data remain private. But I also have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. I use them both. I use Copilot and ChatGPT fairly regularly, but I'm very, very careful using Chat because we don't have that layer of protection, that privacy on there. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about prompting. I'm sure you're totally aware that your output quality is going to hinge on how you word your prompts. So I just wanted to quickly kind of go through what I do. You need a lot of detail. And for me, for grading, I don't like to start off with grade this essay and then copy and paste the essay into AI. I have done it, and yes, it does grade it, but on what basis? And that's what you really need to establish with the system. You need to tell it what you want it to look for. So enter in parameters, and as many as you can think of. So I like to give a lot of information. So first, I like to provide the system with some background. So think about what it might need to produce your output. You might want to tell it your role, like you're a professor, you're an instructor, which level of course that you're working with, whether it's a grad or an undergrad course, maybe the name of the course, any other information that you can think of that might be beneficial. And just FYI, I know I'm breaking all the rules of PowerPoint here and have a lot of information on these slides, but I kind of wanted you to have this in your hip pocket just to go back and look at later if you wanted to. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm showing you what I typically enter into AI. I'll say something like, I'm a professor for an undergrad principles of management course. The following are assignment prompts for a written assignment in the course. And then I just copy and paste in the assignment questions. Then I like to tell the system what I want it to do. So here again, you want to be as specific as possible. Just know that these Gen AI systems can handle very complex prompts. So not only, including text, but you can pull in pictures and graphics and audio and all of that even at the same time. So in my example, I like to tell the system to grade the student responses to the assignment prompts. And then I tell it what I want the output to look like. So I typically want an overview paragraph of feedback that kind of outlines what the student did well. I also get really specific and I tell it to use the word you or the submission instead of the student. And I do this because I need to make as few changes as possible when I get the output from the system. So if I don't tell it to use you or the submission, it'll give me something back that says the student demonstrated a solid understanding. I want it to say your submission demonstrates a solid understanding of the key concepts. So that way I can just cut and paste the feedback without having to make too many alterations. I also ask it to let me know when a student hasn't responded to one of the assignment questions or when the response isn't thorough. And then there's something else that I like to do with it. I like to tell it what not to do. And in my case, I ask it not to provide areas of improvement. And I do this because I found that the suggestions it makes are sometimes beyond the scope of what we've even asked the student to do in the first place. So I then tell it that I'll be entering in student submissions one by one so it knows what to expect. And then this is just an overall sample prompt put all together. Everything that I just said put all together. I'll let you look this over on your own, but at this point, it's when I want to start copy and pasting the student submissions. Something you want to keep in mind is some of these chat boxes have a character limit, especially when you're on the free version. So I'm finding about 4,000 characters tends to be the limit. So you may have to attach student assignments instead of copying and pasting them. But once you have everything entered the way you want, you just press enter and the system goes to work, right? And within literally a few seconds, it's going to provide you with output. And this is a copy of output the system gave me to my previous prompt. Keep in mind that you want the system to complement your work, not to replace you. So you want to read through the feedback it provides and pick and choose what you would like to include. I like to personalize my feedback. So I might start with something like, "Hi, Jenny," or whatever the student's name is. I've had the opportunity to review your submitted work. And then I'll copy and paste from the AI what feedback I want to use. Okay. Keep in mind that you don't have to get everything right with the first prompt. So, and the other thing too is it can remember what was happening earlier in the conversation, so you don't have to reestablish context. So the AI systems, they can be programmed to build on responses. And that's what I'm trying to convey here, is just to try to refine the prompts as much as you can, or just add to it. So like I said earlier, I like to use paragraph form, but I could have easily have said, "Give me a bulleted list," or add just an overview paragraph, or show me feedback question by question, or show me the student's strengths and weaknesses. I could ask what letter grade it would assign to the previous student and why. And I could have it rewrite the student's submission. So it's an A paper. I could have it give suggestions to the previous student for rewriting the paper. I could have it give us some resources that it would suggest for the student to learn more about the topic. I can have it show all the improper APA in-text citations, and then follow that up with, well, what is the correct way to cite? I can have it, and I said this earlier, I can have it end with a positive affirmation like "good work" or "well done." And I can even ask it, of all of these submissions I just put in, what was the most common mistake? I can have it grade the student's submission based on a rubric. And I can also have it calculate a score based on a rubric. I can even have it create a rubric based on the assignment. So the possibilities are just endless with this. So I just wanted to know quickly what assignments that you're using, you're grading with AI, because I've often heard from my colleagues that I'm really lucky to have writing assignments in my courses because I can use AI to help with my grading. Many of my colleagues are convinced that AI can only help with writing assignments, but that's just not simply the case. So yeah, writing seems to be the thing that people are using AI when it comes to grading. But I did go through and just take a look at what all else it can do. And one thing it does really well, diagrams. I recently had an assignment that was asking students to create a diagram after reading a case study. So what I did was I took the case study and I attached it to AI, I had it review and analyze it, and then I asked it to create a diagram based on the assignment. And like I said, it did it pretty well. I uploaded a diagram completed by a student, and I asked it to analyze the submission and provide feedback. It did that very nicely. And then just out of curiosity, I asked it what letter grade it would assign to the student and why. I asked it to recreate the student's diagram to show what it would look like if it was done correctly. And I was really impressed with what it could do with this type of assignment. But it can even look at infographics. It can assess the layout, the design, the readability. It can look at image use, all those kind of technical aspects, structural aspects. But the human judgment is still needed for the creativity piece, for the audience impact, maybe. You can even upload slide decks, have it analyze slide decks against a rubric. For speech assignments, you can upload audio files and have it evaluate things like clarity and pacing and pronunciation. There is a feature in Gemini now that Google has out that you can share your screen, have it watch a video, and it can analyze what it's watching, and you can ask questions about what it's watching. So presentations, video presentations. It can even look through that. For art and design, it can look at maybe like the color theory, the symmetry, any kind of design principles. You can upload MP3 and MP4 files and have it analyze pitch and timing and rhythm. For CAD, there are a lot of tools and platforms that can assess accuracy and dimensioning, and just looking at if students are adhering to design specifications. But again, there's a human element, like the human judgment as far as aesthetics or functionality or creative choices. It has to be there as well. For statistical calculations, it can assess that. It can interpret results. It can check for syntax errors with programming, correctness of code. It's pretty good with programming. For math and science problems, it can verify numerical accuracy and formulas, and Tammy can speak to this because that's what she teaches. Logical steps, for example. So it's just so much more than just writing. It's just so much more. I also wanted to point out, and I don't know if any of you are using the AI grading tools. So there are basically two fundamental choices when it comes to grading student work with AI. One is to opt for the chatbots, right? ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, using those. But the other is to use a dedicated AI grading system, and that's what's listed here. The biggest advantage to using these is that they help to streamline prompting, so it makes it a little bit more efficient, and they integrate into the LMS. So it's going to save a little bit more time rather than uploading assignments or copying and pasting them into the chatbot. It's all right there in the LMS. Instead of you looking at a blank prompt box, and I went through like, here's how much detail you need to pull in to prompt the system. These AI grading systems will offer suggested prompts. So they're going to speed up the grading task a little bit more. And you also have all of your student work located in one place, so it can perform analyses on your student work pretty quickly. The downfall is there's a steep cost associated with them, and you would need permission from your institution to integrate it into the LMS. So I also think you're going to sacrifice a little bit of control and flexibility for that easier usage and faster speed. So we talked about the benefits. If using AI for grading is so great, what do we need to be worried about? What do we need to be concerned about? What is your biggest concern when it comes to using this for grading? What do you think? I thought of this too. I was trying to go through and was like, what is my biggest concern, right? For me, I don't want to lose the connection that I have with my students, right? That's like my main concern. But also, if we rely too heavily on AI, we lose the ability to see the students for who they are, to understand them a little bit better, to get an idea of how they think and feel. So I want to use this, and I said this earlier, to complement my practice, not to replace that human element. Tammy mentioned this, accuracy, right? So are these systems accurate? Is the machine producing output that is correct, right? If we don't provide it with enough information, it has the potential of getting it wrong, and it can also misinterpret our meaning. So it's a tool, not a sole evaluator. And I do want to point out, though, that the field is advancing at an extraordinarily fast pace. And I've been reading a little bit about it, and those working in the field of AI said that soon it's going to be infinitely knowledgeable, factually accurate, and reliable with a near perfect IQ. So think about that for a minute. That's a little crazy, right? It also has the potential to be biased. Remember, these systems are trained on sources, and one of those sources is the internet. The internet contains stereotypes. It contains imbalanced representations of different groups, some societal prejudices that AI could replicate in its output. And I'm sure you've seen some studies. There are tons of studies out there. If you get out into the academic literature, there's been research that shows the AI has been biased against certain groups of students. So we want to keep that in mind too. And then finally, we want to be concerned with privacy. We don't want to feed information into the AI's knowledge base. So please, please, please remember, don't share any personally identifiable information, such as student names. I don't know if you have access to birth dates, but don't put that in there. Grades, email addresses, any kind of proprietary information. We just want to be a little bit careful there. But I find this to be a pretty powerful tool. It's a good complement to my work as a faculty member. Certainly not a magic wand, can't replace human judgment and expertise. So I'd say approach this with a blend of openness and caution. You'll want to try to tap into the potential that's there, but there is that irreplaceable human connection between us and our students that we don't want to lose. So thank you. Thanks for joining in. I hope you got a lot out of my part of the session. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina right now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I am going to talk about this all-important guiding student use of AI that we all face every day now. I primarily teach writing courses, and I see it every day. The struggle is real. My perspectives about guiding students and integrating AI have evolved immensely over the year. I should say last month, because everything changes so quickly. Sometimes I feel like I can't keep up with it. So let me ask you then, what are your challenges that you face when you're guiding students in the use of AI, whether that be developing assignments that integrate AI or dealing with AI with your students? What are some of your challenges? Oh, I love slowing them down. Yeah, I agree. So I have some things to think about while we throw some of these ideas we have related to this topic in the chat. Think about how many of your students are using AI to enhance their assignments. Give an estimate in the chat. I'll tell you that I teach a global issues capstone that is our Gen Ed capstone. I would probably say that 5 to 10% of my students are using AI, which in the capstone is a big deal for me because I'm assessing their Gen Ed skills, communication. So I see in the chat 85% admit to using Grammarly. Yeah, the struggle is real. My students all claim Grammarly and Quillbot. So I hear you. As we think about these challenges, we have to find some ways that we're going to both incorporate ethically AI into our courses because they need this skill for their future, and how do we talk to them about using it ethically? And so these are the things I'm going to talk about today as I go through this. So I'm going to start with integrating AI in your courses. And I'm going to give some tips here about how you can integrate this in and have these conversations with your students up front so they understand the ethics of using AI, how to maintain academic integrity, when to use it, when not to use it, and so forth. So a good place to start, even though many of our students know so much more about AI than we do, is just to give them some background, talking about the history, essential concepts, its applications, which is really important because it's so diverse, and these academic integrity issues, and present it with a variety of ways, lectures. I teach completely online, so short little clips and videos talking with my students about their AI use and how they're using it. will help. And then additionally, invite industry experts. So one of the things we do at Indiana Tech is we have a very strong connection with the industries and corporations around us to help build skills in our students. And so bringing in some of those industry experts to talk about how AI is being used in their fields is a really great way to make connections with your students about what they need to be taking away and how they need to be using AI as well. So in addition to that starting point, we've given the foundation. We then want to talk about how we can use it. So things to think about as we start to integrate AI into our courses, whether they're face-to-face or online courses, is obviously to create those specific objectives for each activity and specific tasks, can't speak, just like we would at any point. So I have some examples here. One example would be a predictive maintenance for machinery. We can actually use AI to do that, collecting data about the maintenance associated with the machinery, and then setting up tasks that they would program for this, as well as then emphasizing what skills are the students using. So of course, making that connection with the skills that will be used is important, similar to our learning objectives. Another activity that you can create is a fraud detection in financial transactions. Maybe having our students develop chatbots for customer service tools, or maybe a health monitoring system. All of these things here are things they will use in their industry, and you can use to teach your students ethical use of AI. And it's a way to incorporate these things in your course. Of course, each of these is for different types of degree path, from machinery and maintenance, mechanical, fraud detection, financial transactions, or developing that chatbot. We could have a chatbot in any industry, and there's AI programs out there that will help us integrate this into our courses. Another way we can integrate AI into our courses is allowing students to use these AI tools to conduct literature reviews. And this will help our students learn to not only do some research, but analyze the findings, not only that they see from AI, but what they're getting when they actually review the source themselves. And then they can think about the differences between what AI is giving them, such as I have a lot of students who just use GPT. They go out and they're like, give me 5 sources related to this global issue. And then I say to my students, it's like, what did you learn from this? And they learn nothing other than what they got from AI. So then you can further that assignment and have them really think about what they're getting, as well as learning to cite the source and understand the source. Additionally, another example would be to provide a data set to students and ask them to do a data analysis. Now, this is out of my, I'm in the arts and humanities, so this is more along, Lisa and Tammy could speak to this in their mathematical and business worlds, but using algorithms to identify trends in data, we can use this in the humanities and social sciences and things. But it's at me as a math person, I've used AI to do this. So it makes sense that we teach our students how to ethically do this as well. And it's making those connections between the skills they need for their future. We can use AI in creative assignments. We can use it in peer review process, giving others feedback, thinking about the feedback that they're using and receiving from AI and how they can improve. As Lisa talked about, grading, I have used AI a few times to grade literature summaries for students. And while I see some positives and negatives in it, it did help me as an instructor pinpoint certain areas to further elaborate with my students. The same could go for students using AI, that they can start thinking about, how can I improve this literature summary? And it gives some suggestions of areas they can look into the source to improve this. Creating group assignments is another example. It helps students communicate and work together. When we look at AI for peer collaboration, we can look at using students to write prompts, story ideas. They can do code with this. They can then critically evaluate the code. You can use, like when we talk about these story ideas, the students can work together to further on this. When we look at AI for visualizations, prototypes, we're talking in engineering or even the creative arts, that they can explain their process and have a starting point. So these are all just general starting points here. There are ways to think about AI being integrated into our courses differently than just having a negative outlook towards it. We have AI in simulations and virtual labs. If you're taking an online course, it would be really great if we had good simulation programs. We see this in a lot of course augmented materials that come in, and we can use this then to help our students to learn things like in the sciences and things like that. Virtual labs, those are AI. They should be incorporated into our courses. Then we come to the one I really like looking at, is integrating an assignment on AI ethics and policy analysis. So having your students sit down and think about, hey, what are the ethics of AI and how do we develop policies here to ensure ethical behavior and academic integrity, or ethics in any field that you're in. And when we do that, we're actually getting our students not only to use the AI, but to think about what it's saying is ethical and what they believe is ethical, and then having those conversations about that. The big one, though, is how do we empower our students after we detect AI detection? So I saw a little earlier, someone mentioned in the chat box Grammarly. And I deal with Grammarly every day, and it's one of the biggest issues when Turnitin flags a paper, 60, 70, 100%, my student claims to have used Grammarly. So what do you do about that? Where do you start? So I have a little process I work through, and one of those is, instead of accusing a student, your paper has 100%, you cheated, not that deprives the student of learning. So I have a process which I try to use to foster trust. It provides a safe environment. It promotes transparency between what I expect of the student's writing and what the student expects from feedback from me, as well as the student's explanation of why their paper might have flagged high. And it encourages honesty. And I will say that I believe that most of my students are fairly honest about it. Not everyone, but those who just blatantly use GPT to write their paper, they're like, hey, I had a track meet. It was a busy weekend. I used GPT. And then I have that conversation with them about, yeah, well, that's not okay. What did you learn from this? So beginning with trust, asking your students, what happened here? Let's talk about your writing process, and not coming at them with an accusation of plagiarism or academic integrity violations is really important. And it offers that educational opportunity, which we're here to educate our students. So what, not falling into that old school, you cheated, you get an F format. We can sit here and actually use these situations as educational opportunities. And of course, if the student continues to have academic integrity violations with AI, then of course we should move beyond those conversations and it becomes more punitive. But in the beginning, because many students' perspectives are, I just want to turn in the best paper I can turn in, and AI helps me do that, whether that's Grammarly, Quillbot, GPT, or any of the tools out there. We want to make sure that we're telling them, I love that you want to give me a perfect paper, but I want to see your true, authentic voice. So having those conversations about how to use AI to improve their papers is important. We can have personal development where we encourage reflective thinking, getting our students to think about what they're writing, why they're writing it, what they're talking about, and then, of course, maintaining our academic integrity and standards. So these are some tips here that you can take away from how you help your students maintain academic integrity. Teaching them how to understand and paraphrase, teaching them how to properly cite, even when using AI, and to encourage them to use AI for assistance. And that's the big word. AI can be very helpful to students writing. It can be a starting point, but it should not be the end product. And instilling in your students these tips and tools can help them understand ethical use of AI, and how to move forward in their academic work and be successful in their future. So giving the students the foundation, integrating AI into their courses, and then having these important conversations with our students, not talking at our students, but with them, is the key to successfully preparing them and empowering them to use AI in their academic career and future. So I have our contact information here, and I guess we don't have a lot of time left, but we do have some time. So I think we're going to open it for questions. So thanks for your great question, Kevin. And I don't know that I have the answer to this because, you know, as a writing instructor, there's all kinds of things I could say about how our primary and secondary schools prepare students for their careers in college and forward. And I agree that there is a lack of alignment. I don't know how to answer this. I don't know if Tammy or Lisa do either.
No, but I can see the point, though. There is that misalignment there. So yeah, it's tough. It's just kind of redirecting them when we get them at our level. How do we communicate with our students about use of AI for grading? I'm pretty upfront and forward with it, and I would recommend that as well. I want students to know, you know, just for transparency and trust building. I do encourage my students to use AI, but with restriction as far as letting me know that they have used it and how they've used it. So I have them cite. So that way, you know, they're using it, I'm using it. We're both really upfront with that. I don't know if, Christina, do you use it the same way?
I don't use it a lot, I'll be honest. I've used it in the past for literature summaries, and I didn't write the prompts right to get the right results. So it's a work in progress for me.
I'm just more curious about the pushback of authenticity. You know, can we write original thoughts in 5 years from now? That's really what I'm interested in.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think like perspective here is I've never believed in the time that I've been teaching in the writing that students were prepared to write professionally or at the college level, even before AI was integrated. So I think it's an ongoing battle. That's just my perspective on it. So it's just a never ending thing that we don't prepare our students to think critically in the way we provide education today.
But I just finished up a master's degree, and I did my whole capstone off of one AI phrase, and it wrote the whole thing for me. And literally, like, I put in, it was all about like a recreation activity. But the good part about being selective about it was having the prerequisite knowledge to know that the information was right or wrong. And all AI did for me was speed up my time flow because I just didn't have time to craft the whole document. And it was just bullet points. But more importantly, the use of AI, because it was saying the same 6 things 19 different ways, was completely wrong. Yeah, but I'm like, why can't you just say one thing, you know? But no.
Yeah, good.
But
Anyway.
I think that's also the skill, and this is me as a non-writing person, I'm a mathematician. Teaching students to ask the right prompt requires some skill. So it might be an opportunity to change the way they write, because you really do have to be precise when you're looking for certain things.
Yeah, the pilots.
So if we can keep, if they're not able to copy and paste what we put in and they really have to think through the prompt they need to write, it does give opportunity for them to learn. So I think we just have to readjust the way we do things too.
Anyway, thank you very much, Christina, Tammy, and Lisa. This is great. Thank you so much. I'm going to disappear. Suparna, thank you. See you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.